Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Patrizia. Wonderful to be here. Fantastic talk before, and a perfect liaison for what I'm going to talk about. How many of you would consider being creative? Raise your hand. And as an opposite, how many would say I'm totally not creative? Oh, great, just a few. Well, the good news is that everyone is born creative. It's just the way education, the labor market, society in general are structured to maybe not unleash, nurture, unlock the power of creativity. And so we believe in the possibility of being creative for everyone. And creativity is not just about having, a unstructured kind of process where ideas come out randomly. Creativity can be a process, it's discipline, it's structure, but it's more about making sense of things. To me, creativity is more about connecting dots and being able to imagine, create, and build something which is not existing today. Yeah, so creativity as a shared social dynamic, designing together, not alone, in a living ecosystem. Let's see if I figured this out. Yes. So I wanted to start with a story. I'll go pretty fast because I'm really bad with timing. I'm Italian, and I have 15 minutes. So this is my commute in the morning, Copenhagen. I'm Italian, but I live in Copenhagen. I think it speaks by itself. This is the center of Copenhagen. The municipality of Copenhagen has set an objective, a mission for 2035 to be carbon neutral, or actually climate positive when it comes to mobility. And as of today, 75% of people commute on a very low impact vehicle, either their feet or their legs and their bicycles or electric vehicles. And it's not always fun. I mean, you can imagine. It's windy, it's cold, there is snow. My husband is Danish. I mean, it's not that the Danish people really love to be out in the cold weather, but technology can help creating alignment around this big vision for the city. So no one wakes up in the morning thinking, I want to be carbon neutral in 2035. You need to make the everyday attractive. It's still about design, it's still about creativity, it's still about aesthetics. And in this case, these little kiosks tells you that today, this very person is the number 2099, passing by that very cold cross road of Copenhagen. And you can see the number of people who have been counted since this process started. So in this way, I understand what is my agency, who am I in the system. And then you see that the bicycles adapt to the lifestyle. So if you don't have a car, but you have heavy stuff to move, or your family and children. But most importantly, today we talked about creativity, information as an infrastructure. And I would love to say also creativity probably should have its own space in the infrastructure of society. And in this case, we have basic infrastructure. So we have super strong and super nice bike lane. It's easier to find the parking slot for your bike than for your car. And I love the way that the parking for the car you have to pay, but the one for the bikes is free. So this is the key word, basic primary infrastructure. But then there are also a kind of extra layer, soft secondary infrastructure. The trash bin is tilted, so you can just throw stuff as you go. You can pump your bike as you go. And then the shared collective behavior shape new expectations. We as citizens, we expect to get more. And priorities and agencies. So there are ways in the city, this is very recent architecture, there are ways, literally like ways to move around the city that are only possible if you have the bike. So you understand the power of a collective shared behavior that share a culture, share expectation, and therefore also new ethics, new values, and new creativity is possible. But also inside this infrastructure, all the different elements about mobility, whether it's the train, the bus, the taxi, and so on, they have interfaces that can talk to each other. And this is crucial when you build infrastructures. And these, islands also of coherence. It's important to have a bridge between a common language so that things can actually interact. And of course, I'm using this simple case of mobility, but there is a meta level that maybe could be interesting for the topic of today. So if you are with your bike, you can also take a taxi because the two systems talk to each other. The same with the train. And then because you have the infrastructure, people are creative, collectively. You have a system to make sense of. And people come up with, I had to cut down 10 slides last night because I have only 15 minutes, but crazy ideas come up. And of course, this was 2 weeks ago in my street. I was eating a meal with my family, and by the time of our meal, this couple moved a complete apartment. Sofa, bed, wardrobe. Yeah, Christmas time. I'm not sure he got home. I hope so. Yeah. What I want to say is that this is normal. It's normal because the mental model is there. The expectation is there. So it's not strange. It's absolutely possible. And once again, use that as a metaphor. Kindergartens adapt because now they have space outside, so they take the children outside for a stroller during the day, so they have their own parking lots, but then that becomes your touch point for your everyday. So there is an extra layer of personalizations and all that. New businesses are built. If you look at the amount of revenues produced by businesses on the wheels, it's quite spectacular, I would say. Very, very interesting. I love the idea that this person, for something like 180 euro a year, can sit next to Gucci, who is possibly spending 30,000 euro a month for that prime location in Copenhagen. And of course, ice cream, pizza, everything on the wheels. And talking about creative and collective creativity, this is a beautiful service of my friend Ole, an Ashoka fellow, who founded Cycling Without Age. This is an experience that every one of you coming to Copenhagen can try. Basically, you approach an elderly home, you ask to be given one of these cargo bikes, and you can put 2 elderly people on the bike and go around the city. They're the very best tourist guides. They know everything about the city. They will tell you all the secrets about the different streets, and it's also an amazing experience for them to be reactivated in some of the senses that, staying in the elderly home, maybe they don't really get activated any longer. So, but then the culture is there, the infrastructure is there, the expectation is there, the mental model is there. So the culture is there. So for us, it's not a legend. As an Italian mama, I freaked out when I landed in Copenhagen, but now also for me it's quite normal. Because of this culture of the outdoor and the wheels and, again, the infrastructure, it's normal to leave your children outside in the street. Of course, it's a very safe place, trust-based. And products are changing, so there are these beds which are made of wood for the children to sleep out in the kindergarten. This is my daughter's 15 years ago, 20 years ago nursery. Yes, and the same there, and you see special parking for the prams and so on. I want to say that this is basically embedded in the culture. Remember, infrastructure, change of mental model, new behaviors, new ethics, new values, new expectations, and then you shape a new culture. The fantastic Benjamin Benedict, the Swiss ambassador, decided that it was too much of an old fashion to sit in his own super institutional office in the north of Copenhagen, and he decided to create the very first pop-up embassy. So he sits on his bike. Now he moved to San Francisco. I don't know if he's doing it also there, but he just changed the sense of the institution. Rather than going to a very fancy office, you meet the ambassador in the parks, in the cafes. On the social media, he was publishing his next station, and you could, of course, it felt more approachable. So creativity, when it's applied in a very closed and centralized and kind of controlled environment, as a metaphor, or as a mental model, let's use Apple, Google, very secretive elements, very secretive environments and contexts where you basically create products and services whose impact has to do mostly with the life of people, and you create market in this way. When you unleash the creativity of people in organization, in HR and in an HR way, Then the impact is on the life of the organization, and you create engagement. In society, when you create, basically give the possibility to be creative about value, ethics, and culture as a consequence of behaviors and engagement, then the impact is in the life of a society, and we establish a new progress and evolution. Our challenge at CID, but also in my own professional journey, and don't know how to do it really yet, but our mission is to understand how to be creative with nature, to co-create and co-evolve and work with nature, and looking at nature not just as source of resources, but also at nature as a partner, as a mentor, as someone to co-create and co-evolve with. So if we manage to do that, then the impact will be on the life of the ecosystem, and we create regeneration. So we give back more than we take. The power of creativity, so basically everything that is in the world, everything that is not coming from nature, at some point has been designed. So I'm a designer, so there is a lot of pressure, responsibility, but also incredible opportunity, especially nowadays, to pivot and to change the way we design new products. John Tucker has said that the 80% of the impact, social, environmental, of today's products, services, and infrastructure is determined at the design stage. When people go from thinking something that doesn't exist into making it into the world. So design decisions shape the processes behind the products we use, the materials and energy required to make them, the ways we operate them, and what happens to them when we no longer need them. So a lot of pressure, which basically means moving from a very anthropocentric way of looking at the world to a biocentric. Humans are no longer in the center of the decision-making. We need to think of a more ecosystemic way of doing things, which put life in the center and not humans. So the life of the entire ecosystem. At CID, we do this by, today many of the words have been already mentioned, prototyping, co-creation, iteration. So basically, we have 3 cycles. We start with research, design and prototyping, and all the way to venture, new social impact or environmental impact businesses. In real life, it means living with people, observing their everyday, leveraging their creativity and power, I would say, in shaping new products and services. We always inquire nature. Nature has solved most of the challenges we are asked to solve as humanity. Living as an ecosystem, adapting, cooperating rather than competing. And then we make analysis and mapping, idea generation, rapid prototyping, co-creation and iterations with people, prototyping, pilot programs, and team incubation. Just a couple of examples before someone will get me some eyes. I think it's very soon. The Danish public libraries. 15 years ago, we worked with them on rethinking the value and the role of libraries as a public service. There is much more access to digital resources, and libraries are very physical, community-based spaces. So on top of transforming libraries into maker spaces, so places where people can access facilities that otherwise they maybe could not buy, really just as an investment for their own homes, we also noticed by observing, staying there, figuring out that 80% of the people who are in the library are not there for the books, from dating to others. A lot of tourists, they're using the library as a neutral, common, free public space. We figured out that a part of the population, mostly men between 28 and 55 years old, were not using the library as such, even though they say they would love to go, but their everyday logistics would not make it possible. So we said, what if we extended the library to just be open? What if we trusted people to just come in, even when the staff is not there? And initially, when you change the system, talking of the U and everything we saw today, there is the fear of the risk that you are taking when you maybe open up the libraries, because of course, the cost of keeping the staff active, maybe until 10, 11 o'clock at night or midnight is too high. So we piloted that program, and now it's still absolutely working fantastically. Most of the libraries are open until midnight. After 6, there is no staff. Everyone is entering with the equivalent of the Social Security, the yellow card in Denmark. And beside a few episodes on a Friday or Saturday night with some, pizza paper or some empty cans. No one has ever taken advantage of this freedom and trust that the government is giving to the citizens. And so, yeah, so it's beautiful, I think, also to pass by at night and see this kind of life in a system that is normally asleep at night. And this is what we mean by prototyping and co-creating. Oops, it should play. I hope it's playing. No, stop playing. Okay. Any magic that you can do with the... Okay, I'll go on. If for any reason it's possible to have it, that would be fantastic. Okay, so this is Andreas, one of our students. We do two things, education and also partnership with companies and startups. Andreas wanted to create a musical instrument for people who have disabilities. The time of the week at this recreational space where he did observation and research, the music class is the most attended class. But the facilitators, the teachers, are making an incredible personal effort in adapting the musical instruments that you can find in the market, whether it's a guitar, drums, piano, to the disabilities of the people who are there. So you see maracas, which are taped around the wrist because people cannot control them, or drums, which have been adapted to the disabilities. Andreas thought, is there a way for people with disabilities to create music by using their abilities? And so by using your eyes and facial expressions, and by looking at the screen at different points, pointing at different parts of the screen, you create music. It's quite a beautiful video, so I hope maybe we'll make it work. But I talked about infrastructure acting as an ecosystem, unleashing creativity of everyone. But how do we learn to design and sustain living ecosystems? We learn it from nature. So a key component of the process here is something called biomimicry, which literally means mimicking nature. So bio, life, and mimesis, to imitate. A tool to help answer the question, how would nature solve this? So anytime we have a challenge, a brief for innovation, we start, as I said, looking at nature. So recently, and I'll close now, we're working on a project for impact investment, actually, where the Rockefeller Foundation, the Abundance Circle, with the support, general support of the Novo Foundation, is asking us, how can we redesign impact investment vehicles, and I would say also dynamics and language and glossary for the future. And we suggested to look at nature. First, the question was like, Simona, when you mean nature, what do you mean exactly? Not the plants, the birds, and the flowers. And I thought, okay, now I'm losing the project, but yes, it's nature, it's complete nature. So we have been inquiring people, 26 different organizations, NGOs, philanthropic organizations, venture funds, and anyone who says that they have a willingness and an intention to create impacts to investment. And we learn from them many things, and here is just like some key insights. The need for a new system, the idea and the need to redefine returns in impact investment, fostering trust and collaboration, addressing the importance of education in impact investment. So many people from the venture funds and also from pensions and people who would really want to support the impact investment approach, but they're not educated to do it. And we ask nature, how does nature support this, how does nature create impact? How does it create like good and positive future for everyone? Some of the key learnings, it's a big report, and it's on, you can have it, so if you're interested, just reach out. Nature operates through feedback loops. Constant communication about the progress of every single living element in nature. At every single moment, you know how nature is doing because of these constant feedback loops. From a flower that is blossoming or a mushroom that is growing, you always see there is constant feedback. So in nature, everything is interconnected through continuous feedback loops that enable collective thriving. Mutualism, benefits for everyone. Ecosystems thrive when all members benefit through interdependence. Regeneration, quite obvious. Regenerative systems reuse and retain resources over time, so they also save something to be put back into the system. And the last one is abundance, so intelligent responsiveness, making sense of what's there. Ecosystems adapt to make the most of available resources, not domination, but co-evolution. And then, as I said before, brainstorming, prototyping, a lot of work with our stakeholders. Right now, we're working on building, with AI, a new platform. So AI can mirror nature's feedback loops by being utilized as channels for impact investing to share, access, and build upon knowledge together. We're not into building a complete new ecosystem, a complete new independent organization. We just want to make sense of what is already there and use AI to connect these existing, already maybe thriving organizations. So we're building a network of AI agents with different kind of agents, basically. Foundational agents, the infrastructure, agents who will track, analyze, and translate data, and agents who will make sense of what is available out there. So instead of building something new, we want to use AI to basically connect the dots. Yeah, I'll just go quickly because, so in the future, we're looking at some tools that will help people making better decisions for impact investment and also based on completely new KPI. My message today is kind of zooming in and zooming out. So this ability of just not looking, today we talked about, change doesn't happen just thinking of the big scales and starting from the big scale, but starting at every single action we can take as individuals, which has then impact on the the next layer of scale. In nature, the goal is not growth, it's coevolution. So I think that could also be inspiring maybe for us. So I hope that my message today will create some actions next week, that maybe you bring a prototype to your next meeting rather than coming with a PowerPoint, as I did today. Maybe show up with something that manifests your idea, even with paper, something very basic. Use nature as a mentor to solve one of your challenges, whether it's in life, at work, or in social life. And the core of life, as I said, is coevolution and not growth. Thank you so much.